Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, mammals, cats, dogs, chickens, ducks, and all in between. Yes, I have to mention chickens because I know some of you at home have chickens sitting on your couch right next to you as you watch this. My name is Stefano, and today we're going to talk about why I bought Ubiquity cameras and my experience with them so far. So first and foremost, take everything I say with a grain of salt because I have very limited experience with IP cameras or security cameras in general. So I'm pretty biased, I would say. Now, with that being said, I think my experience with UniFi is still very valid because it feels valuable, and I think you guys should know about it. So first off, why did I buy UniFi or Ubiquity cameras? Well, I like the idea of the UniFi ecosystem that Ubiquity provides, and within that ecosystem, you have the UniFi cameras. And honestly, they seem pretty great. They're relatively affordable. They have all of the features that I'm looking for, as in no subscription. I can record locally if I want. I don't have to use a Ubiquity NVR. I can use my own, like my Unraid server. There's container support. There's VM support. There's a whole broad range of access to these features. I get lifetime updates. And I think I already mentioned no subscriptions, but I'm going to say it again. No subscriptions and no paying to unlock additional features. Now, there are definitely other cameras out there that offer these same things, but I feel like the vast majority of cameras have some sort of licensing or subscriptions that really is, in my opinion, a barrier to entry. Now, yes, you can get cameras a hell of a lot cheaper, but you're typically paying for some feature or some subscription for like cloud storage, and that's where those companies make up their money. So with the UniFi cameras, I feel like I'm getting a pretty good value because of the ecosystem, and also with the ability to branch out and use my own equipment if I should so choose. Now, there was some problems in the past with the proprietary PoE that UniFi was trying to put out there, but they have since rectified that and now are using 802.3 AF or whatever the current standard is. So things like that were kind of shady at first, but I think Ubiquity has gone in the right direction and listened to their customer base and provided them, or us really, with the things that we want. In my case, I didn't know anything about that. I just happened to get their switch anyway, so I avoided that whole problem. But I'm glad there's people out there who really care and want to use these cameras. And they have a lot of the same features that a lot of other cameras have, like the cameras having the ability to stream to the network. You can capture the streams with things like VLC and probably third-party applications like Blue Iris. Don't quote me on that, but there are some other NVR softwares out there that could probably tap into the Ubiquity cameras. I know that's a really popular options with Dua, I don't know how to say that company's name, and Hikvision. So that way, those people can avoid subscriptions and all those things. But honestly, there's just something that's really sexy and appealing about that ecosystem, and that's what really drove me to UniFi in the first place. And I've got to say, my experience overall with UniFi cameras and the UniFi ecosystem has been great. It's been easy for me because I'm not a network person, and when it comes to home stuff, I don't really want to challenge myself that much. Like, I do like a challenge, and I like to overcome certain things, but sometimes after a long day at work or a long day just being around the house, I just want to come home and just simply configure something that works. And when you have companies like Cisco who have pretty much given up on the prosumers, like, I don't know if I want to be all command line and stuff. That's just not for me. Now, I'm really jealous of people that are able to take it to that level day in and day out. And I don't know where you guys get the energy. That's pretty impressive, but that's just not the life for me. UniFi is exactly what I've been looking for a very long time when it comes to networking and IP cameras. So I've been really, really happy with that so far. Now, the image quality for me, it's nothing exceptional. It's nothing bad. It's about what I would expect. I think a lot of people get really hung up on the idea of image quality because while it is important to catch, let's say you catch somebody trying to rob you and you get their face, obviously you want to have image quality that is good enough to see that person's face so that way it can be used as evidence later on. But I think the camera's true purpose is to act as a deterrent. Now, obviously that's not true, or well, that is true, but obviously that doesn't stop criminals or would-be criminals from doing things, because People still rob banks, even though there's cameras everywhere. People still are being porch pirates and stealing packages off your porches. And they can see the doorbell cameras and cameras around the houses if they have them. So obviously they're not that effective of a deterrent, but that's, in my opinion, what the true purpose of a camera is to be a deterrent and not really so much used as evidence. But obviously evidence is a key component for, selling a camera, right? Like, obviously you wouldn't buy a fake camera. Wait a minute. You can buy fake cameras, but if you're going to buy fake cameras, you might as well get real ones so you can get that evidence. So I don't really know what the point of fake cameras are. That's the point. So anyway, all that stuff is great. Being able to review footage on the apps, which are all free, by the way, is great. And it's just overall a great experience. Now, my experience with other brands, or the one other brand, I should say, Vicon, who's a third-party reseller of an unknown entity, their software is pretty good. I can't complain. It's pretty easy, but there's a lot of, it's just messy. It's very, there's a lot of things to configure, and things don't really make sense of where they go. But overall, though, that camera is great. And I think the one thing I like about those cameras and that system, really the cameras, is the mechanical zoom. So at first I didn't think I really cared about not having, or about having software zoom, but once you have a mechanical zoom, those software zooms are not that good, because there's nothing really as cool as being able to hear the camera just kind of zoom in on something and then refocus, and you get a really nice clear picture of whatever you're looking at in most cases. That's something Ubiquiti should be able to offer. And oh, by the way, mechanical zoom cameras are actually cheaper than, I believe, what the current Ubiquiti high-end G4 Pro offers. I think the G4 Pro are mechanical. Don't quote me on that. I'm not actually sure. I don't look at them because they're out of my affordability range. But anyway, so those Vicon cameras are actually pretty nice, and the software is pretty okay. There's definitely room for improvement because the things they have are not very intuitive. I find that UniFi is pretty intuitive, but when you are looking for a specific setting, that's really where things get kind of wonky, like how to set up alerts, for instance, isn't very clear cut, or add users. Things like that could use some improvement. Now, I'm using really old software, so it might be my fault, and I'm not using UniFi Protect yet, but we will probably get there, and that's probably been improved on. But as of today, I'm still using UniFi Video, and that could be where my problems are. UniFi Video has been fine, aside for a couple of things. But honestly, the whole system is fine. And back to Vicon, there's some room for improvement for their system, but I think it's still really good. Now, I've never used Blue Iris. That's the top recommended software to use when it comes to home security cameras. And with good reason. I've seen pictures and video of their software in use, and it seems pretty intuitive to use as well. But I feel like it's too confined. It doesn't really, this isn't the software's fault, but it's too confined in that one environment. Like with UniFi, you have that whole ecosystem, and it's really easy to kind of work with everything relatively quickly. So that stuff never really appealed to me. Now, probably one of the biggest reasons I went with UniFi is because I have a distrust of companies I've never heard of, and I did at one point I have never heard of Ubiquiti, so it was kind of a gamble to go with them, but I feel like the gamble paid off, because as of August 13th, the Secretary of Defense has released a memo for implementation, this is for the Department of Defense, by the way, that keeps companies and government organizations from purchasing equipment, security equipment from Huawei, ZTE, Hytera, Hikvision, and Dawa. I don't know how to say that. I'm sorry. I've totally massacring that. And their subsidiary companies or any entities that are affiliated with those companies, which is pretty freaking scary, in my opinion. Now, I think a lot of that is probably more political based, so don't bust out your tinfoil hats just yet. And as anybody in the United States knows right now, there's a lot of this political nonsense going on, so that's probably where most of this stuff stems from. But it's still kind of scary anyway. And I think where this is really coming from is that maybe Huawei and Hikvision have been caught, well, not those two exclusively, but I'm just using them as examples, have been caught capturing data and sending that back home and doing who knows what with it, or we're not really sure what data they have captured and sent back home. Now, if you're practicing good security, that stuff doesn't matter because those cameras or that equipment, shouldn't touch the outside internet anyway or not be able to reach it. So it's kind of pointless in that sense. And, almost all companies, do these sorts of things anyway. You have Apple, who captures crash reports from whenever your Mac crashes, and that gets sent back to Apple, if you so choose. Samsung does the same thing. Microsoft does the same thing. Loads and loads of companies do this. So it's not anything that's unheard of. But it is kind of different when the United States government comes out and says, hey, no, you cannot buy or provision this equipment anymore. This is a hard no, and they specifically list the People's Republic of China and these specific companies. Now, I'm not going to read the whole memo to you guys. You can find it online if you want to read it yourselves. But that stuff is still pretty alarming, I would say, in general. So that's not to say Ubiquity is, exactly transparent. We don't know, or at least I don't know, where they get their equipment from, which is probably, everything's manufactured in China. Like, that's just the truth, right? To keep the cost down for us when we're trying to buy things. But I think Ubiquity might be doing a better job of controlling, the production process and the manufacturing process and all that stuff. I think they do a really good job of controlling that. And of course, they produce the software, and they have really good control of what happens with the data. And I want to say a long time ago, a few years ago, they actually released, hey, when we capture data, this is what we're looking for. But I would be taking guesses if I could repeat exactly what I remember, repeat what I actually don't remember reading. That's kind of weird to say. So anyway, so I'm happy that I ended up going with Ubiquity instead of Hikvision or Dua, whatever they're called. Because when something like this pops up, I know that if I had cameras, I'd be really scrutinizing my network right now. And as someone who doesn't have networking skills, that would really put me on edge, because I'd be like scrambling to essentially make sure that, my I's are dotted and my T's are crossed. So let's talk about why I wanted cameras. I thought I'd be capturing a lot of nefarious things like this, but I didn't. I ended up capturing a lot of things like this, which was me being dumb, which happens a lot, by the way. So the whole reason why I wanted cameras was really to capture or be able to see around the house without getting up out of bed. The front door mainly, because my front door doesn't have like a peephole, so I can't see out of it. And eventually, when I add more cameras, I want to be able to just kind of observe the premises or the property and spy on my neighbors without them knowing, from the comfort of the bed or the bathroom or the couch or the kitchen or wherever I may be. There's nothing better than like sitting at your gaming computer and be like, oh man, I know I have a package coming, but I've disabled the doorbell because I don't want to wake somebody up in the family or have the dogs bark. So having like camera and notification system is really good because, I can sit there on my phone and see that stuff. So things like that are really the reason why I wanted cameras. It wasn't so much for, having evidence to stop some thief. That's just, icing on the cake, as they say. So hopefully this was a pretty short video. There's probably tons and tons of things I could have talked about, and there's probably tons of things I missed. But again, the whole purpose of this video is just to talk about my experience and, how happy I am. And honestly, I've been really happy with UniFi, and at this point, anybody who's interested in cameras, I will always recommend Ubiquity products and their cameras, even though they're pretty pricey. But I think there's a lot of trade-offs with any camera, no matter what. It's just, I'm obviously biased and have an affinity towards their system and ecosystem. So, if you're looking for UniFi at home, highly recommend it. And, if not, then I hope you are able to find the resources you need to find a good brand that you can keep around your house and feel safe or deter criminals or would-be criminals or whatever you're willing to capture or willing, trying to capture out there. So I want to thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Peace.